Namaskar and welcome back to our series on Rejuvenating the Republic Mission 2050 in conversation with Dr. Bhaskara Rao. Dr. Bhaskara Rao, an eminent author, scholar and researcher who has been studying and understanding how a governance and the various dimensions of governance in our country more than 6 decades has been talking to us on various issues that are we need to reflect on our republic to rejuvenate it by the year 2050. In the previous two episodes, we talked about the little republics of India and spoke about and understood what villages can help in rejuvenating our republic. And in the second episode, which was broken down into two parts, we talked about the electoral system of our country and how we can restore and revive that to be more representative in the series. It was titled We the People. In this episode, the third episode in this series, we will talk about what Dr. Rao has identified, the fifth pillar, the civil society. So let's go on to Dr. Rao to understand why, Dr. Rao, what do you mean, first of all, by civil society and how is it important in rejuvenating a republic?
Thank you, Dr. Vasanthi. I think it's very interesting that the civil society, despite that its significance today is far more than before, is altogether forgotten. Mm-hmm. I don't see anywhere being talked about what it is all about, why it is significant today and all that. So in that context, this conversation today should be of importance. Firstly, let me tell you that this country is unique for the kind of a role or that was played by the civil society even pre-independence time. In fact, the pre-independence time, it was the civil society which has played the significant role. Prime role was played by the civil society. Right. And if you really analyze the kind of role or the how it has gained as a movement, civil society has become a momentum. Mm-hmm. There are three things that occur to me as a fundamentals that remain even today as a basic premise for civil society. Okay. Number one, cooperation and collaborative outlook of people.
Okay.
Far more important to retain that spirit. Number two is concern and some kind of a cause. Concern, cause for others.
Okay.
If you don't have that, you can't really be a person of significant, or you can make any contribution in the society wherever you are born, or in the community that you are born. That's a second important fundamental of a civil society member, citizen. The third is recognizing the individual matters.
Okay.
Individual is not one, but becomes multiplied.
A collective.
Collectiveness. It acquires collectiveness. Once you have these earlier two fundamentals, characters, attributes, outlook, one has, then the individual becomes kind of a multiplying effect in a society. So these are the three fundamentals that one need to remember, that civil society idea of civil society is based on, or acquires its strength from these fundamentals.
So, Dr. Rao, you've given us the attributes of what a civil society is, and that it played such a significant role in our independence. How has it emerged since then to now? So, what is civil society today? Let's understand that, and what role does it play in the republic?
Yes, the civil society it makes the democracy a functional one. It makes the government responsive and good governance acquires that postulate it acquires. And then people's representation ensures, civil society ensures that a government and governance remains the people-centric. So these are some of the attributes that civil society carries, no matter which period it is. But going back to the earlier period of soon after the independence, we have set very, very good precedents in this country for the future generation, that how civil society need to play a bigger role, a more organized role, and how it should play. Now, give you an example of in 1957, when the ruling party had its All India meeting in Avadi outside Chennai, then Madras. There was the ruling party passed a resolution to have a cooperative farming in India. It was passed by a majority.
Okay.
But there was a minority farmer groups within the ruling party. Some of them are even members of the parliament,
Okay.
like Charan Singh, Professor N.G. Ranga, people like that. Very eminent people, well educated people, but they remained farmers. They thought that is not good for the country.
Okay.
So you know what they did? At that time, when there was no TV,
No
there was no technology whatsoever. N.G. Ranga, Professor N.G. Ranga, appealed the nation and the farmers to write to the Prime Minister that this cooperative farming is not good for the country and its future. Just an appeal. So when Professor N.G. Ranga made an appeal to the farmers of India to write to the Prime Minister expressing their view about cooperative farming, can you believe? Within a matter of 3 months, the Prime Minister in Teen Murti in New Delhi started receiving bags and bags full of postal bags with postcards,
Farmers written.
from farmers. And one day, Prime Minister Nehru was passing out of Teen Murti Bhavan, and the postal van arrived there and asked, "What is this van doing here?" Then they said, there are so many bags full of cards here. So he said, "What are these cards? Show me." Then he saw one card and he was surprised how farmers knew that we passed this resolution. He wanted to know more. What are these bags? Postal bags. He got some of them opened by his secretary Mataya, and he was shocked to see that so many people have written expressing that cooperative farming of the Soviet Union model was not good for India.
Amazing.
So he was by then already asked the Law Ministry of Legislation, to prepare a bill introducing in the next session of the Parliament a bill
on cooperative
farming. So what Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister, did was, the first thing he did when he went to the office was called the Secretary of the Legislature and asked him to stop the bill and not to proceed.
Because of those cards.
This was the kind of a reaction. So the point I am trying to mention here is the civil society not only helps in implementing a policy or a program, but even in formulating a policy, public policy.
Exactly.
This is a very significant role. In fact, what an amazing people we have in this country. Such an inspiring people of this country, particularly the woman. Avabai Wadia. What a wonderful lady, a very inspiring lady. I met her more than a couple of times. Tall lady, gigantic personality. She was the first one to take up the family planning idea. Okay. Nobody, Subhash Chandra Bose and a couple of people took up the cause of the family planning earlier, but they never followed it up. It was Avabai Wadia who gave a call to the other people in the country that we must be concerned about the family planning. I can mention about Durgabhai Deshmukh, who gave a call about the children and their education, particularly the girls' education.
Right.
She started the Andhra Education Society in Chennai, then Madras. And similarly, there are other people like
Ilabai.
Soundar Ramchandran in Gandhigram near Madurai,
Okay.
who started a wonderful institute, still continues today.
Wow.
You know, these are the, and then there is there are other women. The environment has become a national concern. It was the women.
Chipko movement.
Chipko movement in Uttaranchal has acquired a national pride and stimulated
Policies.
as many policies are based on what 6 women together stood up
And protected the whole
protecting
forest.
the trees.
Yes.
How it has become a inspiring story. Similarly, Ilabat
Yes.
in Ahmedabad,
Yeah.
the textile workers, unorganized, what kind of effort they were putting in to make the textile mills go on, run,
Yes.
and without any remuneration, without any recognition to their work. It was Ilabat Seva organization that she created as an organized body.
Yes, you mentioned unorganized and organized.
Yes, as an organized body, she made Seva, made a wonderful, and many policies were made based on that organization. Like this, I can mention then there was the Right to Information Act by
Much more recently, huh?
more recently Aruna Roy.
Yes.
You know what a fantastic job with the Mazdoor in Rajasthan who are not getting their daily wages. That's a common cause. It's an interest. They mobilizing the Mazdoor women getting together to fight
To get their
wages. And then that becomes a movement. And then that sets an example. Then that becomes an act in the parliament. So this is how the civil society contribution in preparing public policies. Then there are several examples I can mention. I am very happy, I am proud to say that I am associated with some of these things, including the social audit. I was the first one to start that social audit idea in India. How the civil society, by way of public hearing, the public should be able to express their anguish, their anger, their concern,
or disconcern.
or disconcern, or support
Yeah, or
the government
support.
policies.
Or support,
Now
yes.
we have example of the Swachh Bharat. The government claims that they have done a wonderful job. Yes, it was a wonderful idea that the Prime Minister Modi has taken up, and it has done a great job in a short time. But how did they do it? It was because of the civil society. It was they who made it possible in such a short time. Although they were forgotten, they were never recognized. That was a different story. But then I can mention like this, there are several such examples. You know, this country would have been full of nuclear devices all over the country. How they were prevented? It was not the government. Government was trying to bring in nuclear devices from America, Germany and other places and set up
Plants.
the
Nuclear plants.
The plants here in India. It was the civil society which envisioned that the dangers of this and prevented Bhopal-like disasters in India. And the credit goes to civil society. So I can mention examples like this of so many people. Kamala Devi Chattopadhyaya is another example of how the weavers of India, the designs of textiles in this country, so great in the world, it is because of the civil society interest, concern
And commitment
they showed, and the organized sector they brought in. For an unorganized sector was brought into the organized sector, but remained their concern. So like this I can mention so many. Lok Satta in Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan is another example, more recently in a different way. There are so many others who have in the academics, there are scientists, there are members of parliament,
the politicians.
There's
the chief ministers now.
I'll come to the chief ministers, what they have done and all that, how they become chief ministers and what they done soon after that. I'll come to that later. As the governments, successive governments started taking a particular adversary view of the civil society, the problem started coming in. That civil society, instead of recognizing them as a wonderful ally of the government, in doing good for the people of the country, for taking up the programs to the people, and see that they are, in fact, there are several studies, including the one I have done in CMS and elsewhere, that the programs, massive program, literacy, say Laker, there are so many others, they have become successful wherever there are people's involvement, civil society is involved, the success rate is very high. As I said, the Swachh Bharat is one example. There are others in the drinking water or welfare schemes, education, children's education is another example. Wherever, so, but once the government started taking the a different view, the problem started coming. The government started using kind of suppressive methods of looking at the civil society. So that's where that the whole idea got into a different perspective of the leaders of the country. Looking, oh, I should get the credit, not they. You know, that kind of outlook has deterred our road to higher end of governance. So that's why I have been talking for the more than 15 years that in 2011 I wrote that why civil society against this background, against this context, that civil society should be recognized as a pillar of, we until that time, until now, even now, we think of the legislature, the judiciary, the executive are the pillars of the state. Yes. And of course, later on, the press also is considered as the fourth pillar.
Media as the fourth pillar.
I have been saying that significantly as important is the civil society.
As a fifth pillar.
As a fifth pillar. So why we should call it fifth pillar is that once you recognize them as a fifth pillar, certain responsibility, respect comes in everyone's outlook, particularly the leaders who have no background to understand. They don't know what kind of contribution civil society has made and what kind of potential they have to make a difference in the country's development growth path. So this pillar concept is significant. The trajectory of development, democracy and governance could take a new turn for the good of the people in terms of representativeness and in terms of why 75 years later we still have not achieved, for example, the literacy.
Yes.
Or drinking water. I can mention many such things. If the civil society would have been active, as in the case of a couple of things that I mentioned, we would have achieved much better results. The glass would not have been half empty.
Yes.
As it is today viewed. So that is one of the things. That's why I say that the civil society should be viewed as a fifth pillar. There is a lot of advantages for everyone. It's a win-win situation for the country.
Thank you, Dr. Rao, for giving so many examples. It really has shown a wonderful trajectory of how civil society has emerged in our nation. However, today, civil society is looked as mostly to do with something called NGOs and working either cheating people or working against the government or is standing against the government. That's how it is viewed. So given that history that you just explained, how historically the role that civil society has played in not just formulating policies or impacting policies, but also implementing programs, how do you now see, as the fifth pillar that you explained in this republic, what role can they play in rejuvenating our republic by the time we can reach 2050?
You see, what happened was that we have been talking as we celebrated 75 years. In the last couple of years, we have been talking about what the establishment has achieved. And in the process, we have forgotten to even acknowledge the fact, the kind of civil society movements in this country, what a wonderful, enriched the country. You know, and also several research studies have brought out that an act alone will not bring the kind of change that we are expecting. Budgets alone will not bring the kind of change or development that we are achieving. That, what does it mean? It means that the involvement of the people, participation of the people is far more important or as important as the budgets or as the government's involvement. That recognition, that taking into account, that characteristic is not evident. And in the process, there is a second aspect that happened in the more recently is decline in the representative character of our politics.
Governance, government.
In the government, and the way the political parties who claim that they represent the people, but not so much, because they have become party based, individualistic, not
Cause-based.
inclusive.
Or cause based.
The concept of inclusiveness, which is so obviously referred in our constitution, has been forgotten.
Yes.
That is, I can mention several examples where you call it a public meeting, but the people of public is not there, only party workers are there. Just to give it, I don't want to elaborate that, but one could understand what I am trying to say. So, because of these, there is a lot more in the last few years, there is a lot more resentment in the public, in different kind of public, students, farmers, employees including, about dissatisfaction, about what they are facing around them or their families are facing against what is happening globally in terms of economy, in terms of other things. So, and the responsiveness of the establishment is not commensurate to the concerns. So, as a result of that, there are more agitations, more processions all over the country, and the government, instead of taking the political bosses, instead of taking a different view, they are our people, we must understand, we must address their problems. They have taken quite often. There are good examples otherwise, but there are also many examples, state governments as well as the union government taking a different view and trying to suppress. There are several examples of brutalities, including going to the extreme example of suppressing. I can give you examples of how this, we have it gives me the impression, I must say this without any hesitation, that our leaders fail to learn lessons from our past glories, past experiences. What happened is, if you really look at it, I can't help but mentioning two examples. These are only two examples, but there are many other examples. When a chief minister who got elected, coming from an agitations, benefiting from civil society, soon after becoming the chief minister, the first thing he did was that he ensured that the civil society does not get any space
For agitations?
For any expression of their dissent, expression of their, Article 19(1)(a) very specifically allows a citizen to dissent honorably.
And that's why we have spaces allocated all over.
What is called in this particular example that I am mentioning, dharna.
Dharna.
The where you can go there and say that I am not getting my food, or I am deprived, or I am being punished for no fault of mine, or something like that.
Okay.
But if you do that, you will be arrested.
Today you will be arrested.
Today you will be arrested. And now, today, what this particular Chief Minister did was, he ensured that nobody goes, that space is closed for public. And what he did was, thinking that he was very intelligent, he took 20 miles away from the city.
Created another space.
Created a space so that nobody will know that there is some people agitating there. In fact, that reminds me, I did a book in 2019, what is called citizen activism in India. What I did was, in 33 cities of India, how civil society emerges, evolves, and how it expresses.
Activism per se.
How activism takes shape. And mind you, all this is peaceful. This is not violent. But sometimes the government itself provokes people. Not necessarily government means leaders necessarily. It could be police, it could be somebody in between. For example, in this book I have referred how we were earlier, civil society people, ordinary people, were gathering at the secretariat of the state legislation, state governments, or in the and that the people, the police arrest them. All that. So another chief minister in the national capital, soon after he also comes from the civil society, benefited from the civil society, being a civil society activist. This soon after he became chief minister, what he did was, he closed what is known for 100 years.
Jantar Mantar.
Jantar Mantar was closed for public. No, you can't agitate here, you can't demonstrate here, you can't express your dissent, or you can't all that. And another place, Ramlela Maidan, was another great place, equally well known for its civil society gatherings, was also the government tried to. But thanks to the court, the Supreme Court intervention, and the government has passed orders in both these examples that I mentioned. I can mention Chennai, Madras, Marina Beach, 100 years history of how civil society emerged there. What a wonderful work they did there. The government tried to disallow anyone gathering in Marina Beach, and like that in these 33 cities that I have studied. There are amazing stories of how government after government have disallowed or misrepresented good intentions of civil society. No, these are some things which caused a lot of anger. So obviously this has a ripple effect. For example, the farmers of India, they have been, how many years they have been agitating? How many times the government has promised them? But why they are not being fulfilled? Now, you must also give the credit to the current Prime Minister for withdrawing the three bills, the three acts that he brought in. Whether he has consulted the civil society before or not, that's a different issue. But the fact that once he realized that there is farmers are agitating for such a long period, coming from all over the country, he withdrew the acts. So you must give the credit that he deserved on that count. But then the fact that the civil society advantage was not taken and lost the goodwill to some extent, is need to be taken notice. The civil society, with all that great contribution that it has made, the governments over the years, because of the reasons that I mentioned earlier, has taken an adversary view of the civil society, and as a result, there is a kind of a concern and agitation, disappointment on the part of the civil society, both organized and unorganized groups about the kind of response or responsiveness of the governments, both at the states as well as the union. And the social media, in the meanwhile, has come as a kind of a to the risk of the civil society by equipping them a new channel, a new outlet. And they did a fantastic job initially, but then the last 3-4 years the government has realized that the civil society has acquired a new power because of this social media
and new technologies.
And the new technology. So now last 2 years they are preoccupied how to tighten, how to disallow a technology which, instead of taking advantage of that for the benefit of a good governance, for enriching the country, we are going in the opposite direction. We right now, Parliament is going to have 3 bills in the next session, which are going to tighten the the
voices of civil society,
the rights of the citizen. The rights of the citizen are further and further
curbed.
Curbing has become the means of instead of encouraging. So, to sum up, we need this particular conversation with you, Dr. Vasanti, should send a message to the nation that it is time to re-look the civil society in all fairness, with all objectivity, with all the kind of great episodes that we have, examples that we have of enriching this country over the years in so many different fields. So first and foremost, we must provide the civil society honorable recognition by calling it a 5th pillar of the state. Second, we must provide them a space for them to come together, both in the social media, honorably, and physically in across the country, to come together. Wherever they come together, the peace of the place becomes better, because there is no need to fight. We can sort out the problems sitting together. This is there is no need for, we need not discover. This is a fundamental fact, that sitting together, by talking together, we can sort out the problems.
Absolutely.
And that fact, sometimes it appears that the governments have forgotten. So that is the second. Third thing is, don't create hurdles, barriers to the civil society which are functioning so well. I can mention several examples more recently. Somebody who has written a foreword for this book, Pai Panandikar. This organization had done a great job in bettering the policies of the country. That organization has now been labeled as this and that and all that, politicized. Now, I'm mentioning this as only an example. There are several others going through this kind of distress. The Rejuvenating the Republic and the Mission 2050 can't be really achieved the way we want it unless we recognize the civil society and as a 5th pillar of the state, and provide them the space and give them the respect that they deserve, and also involve them in the public policy making and in the implementation of the government program, so that the trajectory of development, democracy and governance acquires their gracefulness. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rao, for illustrating how the civil society movement in India, way back from before we got our independence, during the independence struggle, and even post we became a republic, played a very critical role in the overall development of our nation. And especially in policy making, governance and implementing of lots of programs that concern all of us. So clearly it has played a very critical role without actually getting any acknowledgement, as you clearly illustrated, and your urge of it to be recognized as a fifth pillar is, I think, very valid and understandable. I think today with new technologies, our ability to voice an opinion and to participate in the overall discourse is there. However, it all depends on how active as a citizen I or you or together we are all are. From my understanding of this discussion today, certainly that active citizens is what civil society is all about. The more active as a citizen I am, the more vibrant our civil society is, and that has direct consequences on our republic. So absolutely, thank you very much for bringing in the citizen in this discussion when we are talking about the republic and regenerating the republic. I think it is a very important discussion to acknowledge and remember when we are talking about how vibrant our republic is and what other needs that we need to do now to regenerate the republic by 2050. Thank you very much for being part of this conversation. Do join us next time.